Today, another specialized journal that we will explain to you. This is something called the Purchases Journal. You had several examples of the Sales Journal, and this is kind of the opposite of that type of journal. In the Sales Journal, we talked about selling items and keeping track of it in a sales journal. Now we're talking about the company purchasing things. Now, a couple comments though with this kind of a journal. First of all, uh, we're talking here not about all purchases. We're talking about purchases of inventory. And if you remember a few days ago, a week or so ago, I showed you a video that had a chart of accounts. And one of the sections in the chart of accounts dealt with merchandise. And it's a matter of terminology that I want you to get used to. Very often the term inventory and the term merchandise can be used interchangeably. And I just want you to get used to using various terms. And in this scenario, we're going to be using the term merchandise. Again, the corner hardware store would be buying things that it will resell. So it doesn't make the hammers and the nails that it sells. It buys those items from somebody else, and then the hardware store sells them. So this kind of a journal, the Purchases Journal, will be dealing with purchases of merchandise, or we could say inventory. Same idea. Now, if the corner hardware store would buy supplies, uh, pens for the office, for example, uh, that type of thing, that would not be shown in this journal. And we'll explain more about that later, but it's important to separate those kinds of purchases out. This deals with purchases of merchandise, things that we're going to resell. If we, again, buy supplies, cleaning products, we buy Windex to clean the windows of the store, that's a supply that would be handled differently, as we'll see later. So that's one difference. Another one deals with the page number, very minor idea here, but remember in the sales journal, we had the page number SJ1 or SJ2, meaning sales journal, page 1 or 2. This is happens to be a purchases journal, page 12, so we indicate it by P12 at the top. Let's take a look at the columns in the journal itself. We have a date column, nothing new there. In the sales journal, you had accounts debited column. This is account credited column. And we'll look at that in a moment or two. Then the source document is a little different too. We had a sales invoice in the sales journal as a source document, kind of a paper trail indicating the sale. This is a source document as well, but this stands for purchase order. Purchase order number 232, 233, 234. A purchase order, again, is a written piece of paper. We have a copy. We send it along with our order to our creditor, and it indicates what we're purchasing and for how much. So that's indicated there. Posting reference we'll be talking about in a few minutes. And then one column. Sales Journal had a number of columns. This has only one. It has a title that says Purchases DR. And if you remember way back at the beginning of the year, in the first semester, we talked about the abbreviation DR stands for debit. It's kind of based on a Latin derivative, but we don't need to worry about that too much. But it is part of generally accepted accounting principles that debit, for some reason, is abbreviated DR. So you just simply have to remember that. So this stands for purchases debit, and the column also says accounts payable credit, CR for credit. So we'll talk about how that works and in a moment. One thing you don't see is a column for sales tax payable that we had with the sales journal. Now, we need to think about why that is the case. Sales tax is paid by the customer. So when we sell an item for $100 in the sales journal, we indicate a sales credit of 100 and perhaps a sales tax payable of $5 and change. So we have to collect that from the customer, and then we have to pay it on their behalf. Now, this is the opposite. We are buying something using the purchases journal. When we look at this entry on February 3rd, the credit is to the Quality Tools Incorporated. They are a creditor of ours. We owe them money. Source document is purchase order 232, and the 686.95 represents the total amount that we owe them. That includes sales tax. When you buy something for cash or if you charge it, you're going to have to pay the entire amount. So the detail may be there, the receipt may show you the sales tax, but you have to pay the entire amount. That's what you owe. So we're concerned about the total amount. So this indicates the amount of the item that we bought, or items, and including in that total would be the sales tax. So we don't need a separate column for sales tax because we're paying it as part of this total price. Now, the Quality Tools Incorporated, their responsibility is to separate that out. They have to keep part of it as the amount of their gross profit from what they sold to us, and they have to pay a certain amount of sales tax to the government. That amount is included in the amount that we owe to them. So you have to think about the opposite situation here from a sale. This is a purchase. We've made 3 of them here. Over here on the right, you see them listed. There's a purchase of merchandise on account. Now, that again is important. If we're buying supplies, that would be handled in a different journal. And the purchase order number and so forth is there. On the 12th, then, we bought some more from the General Manufacturing Company. And on the 26th, again, from another creditor, we purchased on account some other merchandise. So they're recorded in the purchases journal as you see there. When we have this completed, when we're at the end of the month and we're ready to post, we only have 3 here. There may be more, but there certainly wouldn't be a number of things every single day. So in this case, there are 3 purchases of merchandise, totaling at the bottom $1,869.98. And let's take a look at how that posting is done. As I said, typically this kind of posting is done at the end of the month. So this is February 29th. We're doing this posting, and we'll start with a total. And we do what the column total, the column tells us to do. At the top it says we debit purchases, we credit accounts payable. These are both general ledger accounts. So we will go to the general ledger and we will find purchases, and this is at the end of the month. And this is purchase journal page 12. And again, this column in the journal says purchases debit, and that's what we debit, the $1,869.98. And obviously the total is shown at the bottom. This is account 501, and we put that underneath the total. But we're not finished with this yet because it also says accounts payable credit, the same amount, $1,869.98, goes to the general ledger, and we find accounts payable at the end of the month. Comes from purchase journal page 12, and this is credited. It's credited because that's what the journal told us to do. We owe more money. We purchased merchandise for $1,869.98, and we owe that amount of money. The account in this case is 201, And so what we would put here would be the two accounts that we posted to, 501 and 201. The individual accounts are posted like they were in the sales journal. We look at the amount that we owe, $686.95 to the quality tools, and this was dated 2/3. We go to the accounts payable ledger, find quality tools, and it comes from purchase journal page 12, and we now owe that amount of money shown in the journal, $686.95. And this account number, 201.3, goes back in the posting reference column. We would do the same thing with general manufacturing, 972.20. And that date was 2/12. We want to get the date correct. General Manufacturing Company, I'm sorry. And again, we owe them the amount shown in the journal, 972.20. And the account number, 201.2. And the third one, Craftsman, 210.83 is 226. Was the date of it. And again, the amount shown in the journal was 210.83. And that account number, 201.1. The other thing that is similar to a sales journal is that if we would add up the balances of all of our creditors' account, they should always equal the total of accounts payable in the general ledger. So again, the sales journal and purchases journal are kind of direct opposites. In one, we're selling something. In this one, we're purchasing, and specifically, we're purchasing merchandise. So this is a little complicated until you get used to using the terminology purchases and merchandise instead of inventory as we're used to. So at this point, review this if you need to, the journalizing and the posting in a purchases journal. Then go to your course page and complete problem number 18.